Hey guys, yeah, it's about 5:43 in the afternoon on this Tuesday, and currently, right now, if you live in the Midwest, in the East Coast, or even Mountain Time Zone, you're basically getting the Tuesday Night War between AEW and NXT, or AEW and WWE right now, and I'm sure you're having a good time. But I wanted to come on here because the biggest news that one of the biggest, at least one of the biggest news that came out in the past 24 hours is the fact that it's pretty much been confirmed by reliable sources and PW insiders Mike Johnson and Fightful Selects, Sean Ross Sapp, among others, and even because they spoke with some people within the company. And those who are close to the situation. But basically, it's all but confirmed that Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, is now creatively in full control of what we see on television. According to various reports, he is 99.9% in charge. And the reason he's only 99.9% in charge is there is that 1% that's still, as people point out, like JD and others have pointed out, there's that 1% that still lingers around, that pretty much has Vince's name on it or Bruce's name on it or whatever. But overall, outside of that, Paul Levesque is in charge. And you know what's funny, when I read this and everything, I was just laughing internally, to myself, because I came on here on camera and audio-wise, live stream, recording. I came on here numerous times, and I told you, in fact, I have a video, I will link at the end here if I can find it. I told you this would probably happen. I basically told you that Vince McMahon would not be creatively in charge of what you see. And nobody wanted to believe that. Nobody wanted to believe that, but I said he would not be in charge. I even said it when I talked about the merger, when it became official. He would probably not be creatively in charge because Ari Emanuel, unlike Vince, is a person that's not only younger than him, not only his boss now, but also the fact that Ari Emanuel, even though he's supposedly close friends with Vince and vice versa, he's a guy that's about the now. He is about the here and the now, not the past or decades before. He is the here and the now. And if reports are true, and pretty much all the evidence that you see with what's changing on Raw and SmackDown, for example, is any indication, if the reports are indeed true, and it looks like they are, Ari Emanuel understands that Paul Levesque has a vision of what the product that they are investing in as part of this venture, along with WWE under the TKO banner. Ari Emanuel understands, obviously, that Paul Levesque, and my knuckle just hit the wall there. But Ari Emanuel understands that Paul Levesque has a vision for where the product should go. He has a vision, an outline of how the product should be presented. And, despite, like I said, despite the fact that he's friends, with Vince, Ari Emanuel's not stupid. He's not. And you also got to remember, the guy that's running the WWE ship, if you will, outside of Vince, is Nick Khan. Nick Khan is the president. And basically, any main decisions of WWE don't only fall on Vince or even Ari, they fall mostly on Nick Khan. And Nick Khan obviously sees what Triple H is bringing to the table, and it's like, hey, we should ride with him. And I'm sure word has gotten around to the board of directors at Endeavor, at TKO, that that's the direction they should go. Now, Others have basically alluded to the fact that it might be because, Vince is out with spinal surgery, but also the fact that mainly Vince is pretty much in a situation to where even those in TKO are like, yeah, we may not be, having him around much longer because of what, he's been, going through a lot of, because of a lot of his misgivings. And I'm sure Ari Emanuel knows that as well. Heck, I even talked about the fact that Ari Emanuel could be the kind of guy that tells him, hey, you need to kind of stay on the down low. Stay away from creative, be on the down low, if you will, until things clear up or we get this straightened out. And that's probably what he suggested to Vince, maybe. Who knows? Or maybe he just saw the difference, in the product, because let's be honest, when you purchase, or absorb a company into your own, you're going to want to look back, do a little research of what works and what doesn't. And mainly, he probably saw and talked and even asked about and got, answers that he needed, that Triple H's way of booking and presenting a product worked better than Vince's. And that might have been what made him kind of be like, okay, I'm going to go with Paul Levesque. I'm going to go with Triple H. And that's what he's doing. He's going with Triple H. And again, like I said, it also probably has to do with the fact that, Vince right now is too toxic. I mean, when you have, according to reports, when you have people within the very new company, TKO Group Holdings, on the board of directors, even when you have those people kind of realizing that, yeah, you being here may not be good for us, that's not a good sign. And when you have publications like Axioms, I think that's the name, Axioms, and other, business sources or newspaper sources coming out and saying something, saying something similar or reporting something similar, that's not a good sign. That's not a good, sign for someone like Vince, because what that means is he's probably not going to be around for much longer. And, here's what's crazy. I know some people would say, well, he still has that 1%. What if he's just waiting to invoke that 1%, in his favor? Here's the thing. I'm not putting that against Vince to want to try something like that. I'm not. But again, what would you rather go with? What would you rather, book with, succeed with from a financial and attendance standpoint? Which direction would you rather go in? Would you rather go in the direction of the guy that was once the owner of WWE, had it in his family, that now has all this controversy and everything, and pretty much people have said that, hey, when he books, nobody's happy because they don't know what the hell's going on, 1 minute from the next? Or do you want to go in the direction of someone that has a plan, someone that has a vision of where they want to take the product? And obviously, you're going to want to go with option B, which is, the person that has the vision, has the plan. And that's Triple H. That's Paul Levesque. And again, like I said at the beginning, I pretty much called this. And here's what's crazy. I respect people like JD and their opinions, just Alex and their opinions, and Solomonster. And they have the right to say, well, you still have that 1%, so you never know. Look, as much as I respect them, this is just, and I'm saying this with all due respect, no offense towards them, okay? But this is just another example of Vince screwing up things so much from a booking standpoint that basically, he's done it for so long that it's essentially, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Engraved in the heads of people like just Alex and JD and Solomonster and Greg Morgan and others, that even when you hear news like this, and it sounds like it's great news, terrific news we've been waiting for, even when you hear news like this, you're still kind of worried. Or even when somebody who's a wrestling fan, but it's more on the outside looking in, like someone like me comes out and says, hey, look, when this, comes out and says months before, hey, when this merger happens, Vince is going to be too occupied to, be in creative, or Ari Emanuel is going to make sure he's too occupied to be in creative, or whatever may come up, if you will. When someone like me says, hey, Vince is not going to be, in that position like he used to, and it's going to fall upon Triple H, I think being a longtime fan, I kind of know what I'm talking about, especially being on the outside looking in. And I knew this would happen. But because of what Vince had done for over a past decade, even when I said that months ago, people wouldn't believe it. I could send it. I don't know if Alex saw these videos or whatever, or JD, but I could send them the audio, the audio recordings or the on-camera videos, live streams, whatever, and I could send it to them or anybody else. And because of what Vince did in the past, it's so engraved in their heads, like, oh, it's never going to change. Vince is going to be in ultimate power once Ari Emanuel takes over. It's over. And now look. Who was right? Who was wrong? Exactly. This is why people like JD, Just Alex, Solomon, and Greg Morgan, they need to get Vince off the brain. They need to look at a bigger picture from a business standpoint. Vince, yes, he's executive chairman, or one of the executive chairmen of TKO. Right under Ari Emanuel. But guess what? Like I said, Ari Emanuel is going to keep him busy. He's going to keep him busy coming up with business decisions that's good for TKO. Vince is not going to have time to be creative at all. And obviously that's the case. And again, they probably did some research and saw the difference between how Triple H books and Vince books and realized, oh, Paul Levesque does a better job and people like it, and ratings are up and attendance are up because of it. So who do you think they're going to go with? Exactly. They're going to go with Paul Levesque. And again, this is why when, when I see folks like JD and all of them, being doom and gloom, and then all of a sudden, pretty much they see what's going on here, and then they get this report. It's almost like a light went off in their head. It's almost like a light went off in their head, and they're realizing, oh, maybe this merger is good. Oh, maybe Vince isn't going to be in creative that much anymore. Color us wrong. But again, they still look at that 1% as, that's Vince's ace. That's his trump card. And look, I get where they're coming from with that. Like I said earlier, I get where they're coming from that. I mean, even JD said it in his tweet on Twitter. He said basically, hey, let's not be too excited yet. Yes, this is very good news, but let's remember there's that 1% there. So let's be realistic. That Vince could use that 1% to take total control again. So let's not be too, be too excited right now because we've been burned before. Or something like that. And I get what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. But the fact of the matter is, when you have PW Insider coming out, along with other reliable sources that have talked to people within the company, talked to people within TKO, and they have found out or heard that, yeah, Vince is basically not in charge anymore. He's not even at the creative meetings anymore. And Triple H has pretty much been given, given the scepter, given the keys to the kingdom, if you will, creatively. It's, it's like, I almost lost my train of thought there. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I lost my train of thought there. But, like I was saying, and I'm probably going to put this all together in one video, so I do apologize for that. But like I was saying, it's almost like, a light bulb went off in their head. like, I get where JD's coming from by saying, hey, let's be realistic, let's not be too excited right now and all that, because there's that 1%, that's still out there, that still has Vince's name or Bruce's name on it. And again, I get it, because like he said on his Twitter, we've been here before, we've been burned before, we don't want to be burned again. And, like I said, I understand that, but honestly, I don't think that 1% is anything to really worry about. I mean, yeah, to a lot of people, that could be, an ace up somebody's sleeve, like Vince McMahon. It could be the ace up his sleeve to take everything back. I get that. But again, that's where that fear and paranoia over what Vince has done over the past several years, comes into play. And it's what ruins people's enjoyment. Because when you harbor, not harbor, but when you harbinger on that, a lot, it ruins your enjoyment. It ruins your willingness to want to sit through 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, or 2 hours of NXT, and even if you favor it more so than WWE, 2 hours of Dynamite and Collision and an hour of Rampage, it basically sours your enjoyment because of the fact that everything that this man did over the past several years, booking wise, when you hear the news that the guy that knows what he's doing more so than his father-in-law is now fully in control by 99.9%. And although that's exciting to hear, it's still kind of like, yeah, that's great and everything, but how do we know it's going to last? How do we know it's not temporary? How do we know Vince ain't going to use his 1%? And look, those are all fine questions. Those are all, justified questions. But when you look at the scenario right now, when you look at the fact that even, like I said earlier, Endeavor's own board of directors, the TKO Group Holdings board of directors on both sides of the coin, are kind of very hesitant about having Vince around because of what's happening, with him controversially. And mostly on top of that he just had life-changing spinal surgery, which, is a red flag in any corporate business. Like, can this guy keep going? Can this guy physically be here when we need him? It's basically, it's basically, hold on for a sec. It's basically a no-brainer as to maybe what they're going to do in the future, with the direction of WWE. Are they going to stay are they going to revert back to what, Vince used to do? Or are they going to stay the course with what's bringing them to the dance right now? And again, like I was saying before, I almost lost my train of thought there, once more. This shows you I'm tired because I did work today. But, it's like, when you hear reports, as I mentioned earlier, that these guys at TKO know about Vince's, misgivings, his, the feds, basically, keeping an eye on him, and the feds going to search his, home and his belongings and all that. It's like you can kind of see the writing on the wall, like, of where they're going to go. It's like what direction they're going to go in, with the company. Are they going to say, hey, Vince, you take over again. You founded this company, you take over. Are they going to give it to a guy that right now is pretty much, under a microscope, not just with Ari Emanuel, his supposed friend, but with the federal government and everything he's done? And especially with the spinal surgery, are they going to rely on him to run the company again in all the positions he used to run in, including creative? No, they're not going to. They're not going to, and I think a lot of people are now realizing that. They are. They're all realizing that. And anybody that follows my channel that heard me talk about months ago that, hey, this was going to happen in some way, and now we're seeing, confirmation of it, even from within the company, for those that follow me and heard me say that, but were doubtful, they'll probably breathe in a sigh of relief. They're like, oh, he was right. And again, like I said, this is what happens when a longtime fan like myself is on the outside looking in. Not inside, not just inside as a weekly fan, but outside looking in as a fan. This way I can digest what I see. I can digest what I see. And what I saw basically was I saw coming miles away. I saw coming miles away. Because here's the thing. When Vince McMahon became executive chairman of TKO under Ari Emanuel and alongside Mark Shapiro, do you think, again, he was going to have time to go back to creative and be like, well, let's see, Johnny Gargano's going to come back, right? He's going to help Tommaso Ciampa, right? Whoa, after that, we're going to put him in capes and call him the Super DIYs. Da-da-da-da-da. Do you think he's going to have time to do that? No. Do you think he's going to have time to come back and book Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar again? No, he's not. Because he's going to be kept busy with all other duties as executive chairman of TKO. And he's going to be kept busy to a point that, like I've said before, he's not going to have time. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, people have reported in these reports that those within the company, that have worked in creative, have said he's not been in creative meetings for a while. So obviously these are all good signs. But yes, I understand. People are justifiable, I should say, in their, I guess you could say, the concern, of that 1%. I can understand that. I can understand the kind of concern about that. I get it. But 99.9% is more than one. And some might say, well, that one could be a major one. Yeah, and that's true. It could be. But the thing is, if they're saying Endeavor in TKO Group Holdings are saying, Paul Levesque's our guy, Triple H is our guy, then who are we? Who are we as fans to truly doubt that? I read some of the comments on Twitter. People are like, well, Vince is probably just waiting, sneaking around and being like, oh, come on, Paul, screw up for me, screw up so I can take over. I read some comments, people saying that that's what he's doing. And, look, like I said, people have a right to how they feel because based on what Vince has done in the past. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because as I said earlier, Ari Emanuel is a man of the now. He is a man of the now, in the here and today. Not of the past, not of the past and not of decades before. I see that. And I'm sure everybody else sees that. But in closing, like I said, I saw this coming. I called this. You can go back on my channel, look at the video, search up Vince. Search up me talking about the Endeavor merger. I talked about this. I mentioned this because I knew it was going to happen. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Do you still think Vince, even with that 1%, that Vince or maybe even Bruce could try to screw things up? Or do you think maybe now we could breathe a sigh of relief knowing that Endeavor themselves have appointed Triple H with full control creatively of the company? Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear each and every one of you on this. Comment below, live chat during the premiere. And also, you will get a podcast version of this, hopefully, later on at BW Rose's Discussions Podcast and all your favorite audio and video podcast affiliates, except for Pandora, but more specifically on Pandora. More specifically, I should say, on Spotify. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. How do you feel about this? Do you think maybe this is finally sending a message to people like JD and Just Alex to cool their jets? Let me know. And until then, I am out.